I mean, been stabbed several times when I'm in prison.
Really, you've been stabbed?
Yeah, several times, because like attacks by other inmates, or one time specifically when inmates were set against me by prison officers.
Really?
And that's happened all the way through. My first ever nicking when I went to prison, which is when you get put on a report for a disciplinary report because of your conduct or whatever, was when 2 other inmates attacked me and beat me up when I was 15. And the prison officer who was standing there watching it put me on report for it. I was found guilty of refusing a direct order from the officer, and the order was to mop my own blood up off the floor. Yet I was found guilty of that and punished for it.
Oh my gosh.
And that literally was how it was in there. And I spent 18 months in the punishment block at Wormwood Scrubs, where they were beating people on a daily basis.
Really?
Because they could. Most of them pissed out of their head or high on drugs, and literally, beating people up specifically because they were in the punishment block or they were black. This was
really with the racism.
The racism was absolutely rife.
Really?
Absolutely rife within the with the prison officers. Not so much the prisoners, and even less so in long-term prisons, because you got to live together. Simple as that. It is a matter of survival, and you haven't got time for that sort of crap. It's not really relevant anymore.
Yeah. So it didn't affect your views on people of other races. You just You weren't sort of influenced by their way of thinking, their racist way of thinking?
No, I was never disturbed by their way of thinking, because I understood them quite well. They were absolute pig ignorant savages.
Oh right, so you always saw them like that, and you never became
and I
one
always
from
saw
as
them
such.
like that, so for me it was just, I've always, I celebrate people's differences. I've met some really, really nice guys along the way, guys from all over the world, with some incredible stories to tell of all these different places that I'd never visited before, and, at times thought I would never visit, because they told me time and time and time again that I was going to die in prison. Until I actually admitted my guilt and, as they say, address your offending behaviour, which was, why I specifically spent so much time in prison, because they won't allow you to be released until you've been through their programmes of rehabilitation or whatever it may be. They're not actually rehabilitative. They're not. They never have been and never will be. But at the same time, they wouldn't actually let me go on them anyway, because I was still, as they say, in denial.
Oh, really?
And
so until you actually admitted you were guilty, not admitted, but literally you said you were guilty, they wouldn't put you on a rehabilitation programme.
And, not that I would have gone on anyway, but it was only by, like I say, going through to Grendon and sitting down and talking with them for 2 years, they actually came to a conclusion that I'm not at risk of being released from prison, and I've never had been. And they were the only people who were, brave enough and willing enough to actually sit down and do something like that. I mean, everywhere else you'd been, it was just, they told the official line, and it's just wasting their time with me, because their actual viewpoint and standpoint from the very beginning for me was wrong, and would never ever be right. So, we could never ever see eye to eye anyway. And they would never actually come to you and say, sit down and talk to us and let's see what problems there are and deal with them. They would come to you and say, these are your problems, and if you don't accept them, you're more dangerous than we thought you were, and we're never going to let you out of prison.
Oh, really? So, until you admitted, they just thought you're still in a dangerous frame
very,
of mind.
very specifically. It was mentioned in court, it's been mentioned in the Houses of Parliament. That's actually been given as a reason why I spent so long in prison. They purposely kept me there.
Really?
A 15-year-old screwed up kid.
And what was the day like, the first day that you were actually officially free to walk? Or you had 2 years, didn't you, before they officially quashed your conviction? I was actually
released through a parole board, and that was really because the prison system and the Home Office had run out of reasons to give for me not to be released. They just ran out of reasons.
They sort of kept it going for as long as they could.
Yeah.
And then that was, the time had come for you to be released.
I mean, because at the end of the day, there's only one reason to keep somebody in prison that length of time, and that's because they're a risk to society, a risk of committing those kind of offences again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hadn't committed it in the first place, so how could I be at risk of committing it again? And eventually, because I went up in front of a High Court judge on a parole board, it was actually a legal order to release me. You know, so I got out that way. And I allowed it to happen because, you know, I'd met someone along the way, and I wanted to be with her and, you know, live a, you know, a normal life.
So was this Norma that you
No.
Was this somebody else?
No.
This long before that?
Yeah, this was my girlfriend at the time. Okay. Norma was someone I met through my youngest brother, and yeah, she's always sort of been my adopted mum, so to speak, and sort of always been the mum that I never had before. Okay. My real mother, I've never ever any memory of ever hugging her, kissing her, touching her in any other way other than being hit by her. I don't have any memories of anything else.
So the girlfriend that you met while you were in prison,
yeah, she
kind of gave you a sort of reason to want to be released and to want to sort of live in the real world again.
Yeah, because before that I didn't really care about being released. I wanted to be released, but I didn't care about being released through the prison system. It didn't exist to me. It was irrelevant. Yeah. It was completely and utterly irrelevant. I didn't care which prison they sent me to. I didn't care what they want me to do when I was there. It made no difference to me. It was just prison. This prison, that prison. It's the same as every other prison. You know, so they sent me to Grendon, and Grendon is the same as every other prison for me. Yes, they do different things there in that they try and really, honestly rehabilitate people there, and I actually believe in what they do. But it wasn't for me because, you know, prison didn't exist for me. It never existed.
It wasn't meant to be for you.
No,
you didn't see yourself.
It was just a place I had to be, and you know, I was fine with that. I was fine with that. I actually thought I might be able to do some work there on my own personal problems and issues surrounding me being locked up in prison since I was 15 years old. But I couldn't really do that. There was too many criminals there to do it. Yeah. They was all dealing with criminality and I wasn't.
Yeah, you didn't feel, you just wouldn't have fitted in there.
I stayed there for 2.5 years. I was there 2.5 years.
God.
Pretty much by then the longest I'd stayed pretty much anywhere for quite a long time. So I've been like moved around from prison to prison.
Were you happier there?
I don't know if I can actually say that. It was different, certainly. And there was a hell of a lot more humanity there than I'd ever seen before.
So things were improved as such?
Things were improved, and I was actually in an environment where I was more able to be myself, which was, you know, this really, really screwed up guy who then, by then had been through, you know, a hell of a lot of things that, you know, not very many people ever have to suffer.